was rolling around in bed, ruminating over some gossip I had heard about myself. I ended up in a home that I didn't know with people that I didn't know, and I was given a big jar of moonshine. It's a kind of alcohol, and I drank it. It had a date rape drug in the alcohol. I experienced a really difficult sexual assault. Could have killed me.
Hi, Kat. Welcome to Aligned Voices.
Hi, Bhavna. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, of course.
So, Kat, through no wine in the carpool line, you have become a voice for recovery, motherhood, and challenging the stigma around women and addiction. For listeners who are meeting you for the first time, how would you describe who Kat is today?
Gosh, I'd say that I am most passionate about helping other people within the recovery community. When I was first trying to get sober, I didn't see anybody online or in person anywhere that was talking about it and talking about all of the things that go along with it. And I didn't really know where to turn or what to do. And so I decided that maybe one day I could be that voice. And I think if someone hears my name today, what I hope it's synonymous with is recovery, acceptance, truth, and hope. And that anybody, absolutely anybody could get sober. And nobody said it was going to be easy.
And you have shared very openly about your journey from active addiction to becoming a recovery advocate and speaker. And yes, of course, a writer. How has your identity evolved from who you were then and who you are today?
What a great question. It has been the biggest evolution of my life. I started No Wine in the Carpool Line. It was my first handle on Instagram. And I started it in the middle of the night because I was rolling around in bed, ruminating over some gossip I had heard about myself. I had been sober for 7 years, and I was sitting in the carpool line, and I heard some people chit chatting in a gossipy way about me. And some of the things they were saying were true, and some of the things were not, but they had no idea that I was me. So they didn't know that I was listening to them talk about me. And I was rolling around in bed one night thinking about this. And I just got up and thought, gosh, I'm 7 years sober. Why am I crying about this right now? Why am I hiding from this? Why am I embarrassed that people know that I had a problem and that it's something that I'm working through? So I started No One in the Carpool Line, started writing reels, and just started talking online. And I think it was probably 2 years ago that I really had the biggest evolution. The book was finished. I was getting ready to choose my publisher and going through different agents and things like that. And I realized as I was looking back through my writing, I started out writing um, almost from a very not really defensive position, but explanatory position, and trying to explain why I had done what I had done and such, and talk about the disease. And I'm so glad that I did. But now I'm realizing 2 years later, I'm realizing that my viewpoint has changed. I didn't hate alcohol when I started No Wine in the Carpool Line. I hadn't drunk it in many years, but I didn't have a real personal problem with it or with society as a whole consuming alcohol or mothers or anything like that. And now, as I've been writing in this space for so many years now and speaking in this space for so many years now, that has actually changed. And it was the biggest surprise, maybe of my life, that I have adopted that mentality. And it's truly soul deep. I now don't believe that alcohol is good for anybody for any reason. I know that it's poison. I know that it hurts everybody's body, whether you are suffering from alcoholism, addiction, or anything. It's not good for you, and it's nothing that we need. And that's been the biggest change. That's been the biggest evolution for me. And I've also found who I am. When I started drinking heavily, my children were very little. I didn't start out drinking too heavily. I was a young mother drowning in motherhood. I had a husband who was traveling all the time for business, and I couldn't handle it. There was something missing. There was something wrong. It was coming from within. I was deeply insecure. I didn't know how to handle it. Therapy wasn't working. I was a long distance runner. I could go out and run 17 miles and try to think my way through it. That wasn't working. I think the biggest change in myself is that I know who I am now. I know absolutely who I am. I'm confident to say every word that comes out of my mouth, I stand by. I couldn't have said that before. I know who I am and I'm 100% comfortable being who I came to be. And if somebody else doesn't like it, that's tough shit. Move along. I'm here to help and do the very best that I can. And that's I didn't have the strong voice that I do now. That's been the biggest transformation from me through sobriety. And it didn't happen. I'm going to say I was 10 years sober before this absolutely massive shift in who I am happened. It took me a really long time to get there. I was kind of afraid for a long time what people were going to say back online because the internet isn't a nice place. And, I have gotten a lot of nasty comments and trolls and haters and things like that. And that's totally fine. It's just part of the package. And I think before I was nervous about that. And I would wake up in the morning and think, oh my gosh, what am I going to open and see? And how am I going to respond? I don't worry about that anymore. That's garbage. That's noise. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to reply to everybody and try to fight off the people that believe that we're all degenerates and we always will be, sober or not. That's not what my job is. My job is to show other women the way out. And I'm the one to do it. I feel confident in it and I don't know everything, certainly, not even close, but I do feel that I have a knack for connecting with people that need encouragement in this area. I hope I do. And that's been the biggest and most exciting part of all of this is really seeing the communities come together and feel the feelings and feel the people. And, even when I'm DMing with people about, something's going on with them and I try to get back to everybody, the ones that really want this and are really desperate, I see myself in these women and some gentlemen. I see myself in the way that they're pleading to me, the messages that I get at 2:30 in the morning, certainly not on my phone, but in my DMs and my Instagram. The women that are DMing me at 2:30 a.m. with crazy spellings and off the wall things. And I know what they're going through because that was me. And there was no Instagram back then when I was getting sober, but it was Facebook. And I wasn't messaging people for help, but I would write, crazy things that I thought maybe they'll come back to me and say something to me that's going to make me feel better about the situation in life that I'm in right now. It would always be about drinking. I'd find a strong woman on Facebook who was talking about something, certainly not addiction, but any struggle that she was having. And I'd drop a little nugget in there like, gosh, I think I might be an alcoholic and I'm not sure what to do about it. And hope desperately that somebody would pick up that end of the conversation. And it usually didn't happen. Actually, I can recall that I don't think that it ever did. And so it's just a conversation that I think is so important. And I do feel these women and I do care very deeply. And when I got into this work, I was warned profusely, you can't save people. You can't care about all of these people the way that you're wanting to. It's going to drain you too much. And actually that's not true. I'm not trying to save anyone. I'm trying to encourage people along the way so that they can get to where I am, which is a healthy, happy, functioning life, better than it ever was before, even before I was an alcoholic. This is better because now I know who I am. I thought I knew who I was before and I was young. So maybe we were all still figuring it out. Maybe it was going to take me until I was 33 years old to start figuring out who I was, but there's no way I would have gotten there without sobriety. It just gives me an incredible strength that is a superpower. And I know that's cliche. I see it online. Sobriety is my superpower. And, it's true though. It's true because it brings you back into who you are and who you're supposed to be in the universe. I don't think that I was put here to be clouded and poisoned by something so that I couldn't function in the way that God put me on this earth and intended me to be here and help my fellow man because I really believe that that's what we're doing here. Earth is a school and we're here to help each other along the way. Let's try to help the person next to us not have such a miserable earth journey. Let's do this together, right?
Yes, absolutely. And this is exactly why this is one thing that I appreciate all the messages that you convey is that you don't present recovery as a finish line, right? And and I have observed through the way you write, the way you convey, it shows that you have lived something every day and you have battled it every moment. So coming back to it, I just wanted to understand like what does living in recovery mean to you in everyday life?
It means showing up honestly and fully every single day. It means trying not to cloud anything that we're doing with a substance or a wish of a substance or a thought of a substance. It means making sure that we're able to get up and function in a way that is going to help us and help other people. There's I mean, there are so many different ways for us to start this dialogue and continue it. And I can't imagine how many different people are trying to get through this right now and what it is that each one of us can do to help the other person next to us. I mean, my recovery means everything to me. I hold it closer than anything that I've ever held in my life. If I don't have sobriety every single day of my life, I have nothing. There's my life isn't going to be anything without sobriety. It's the way that I live every single day. And I'm not just talking about not picking up a bottle. I'm talking about waking up and setting an intention for the day and maybe exercising and eating well. It's everything all together. It's not just one thing. We have to live this for the rest of our lives. And if we think, okay, I'm 6 months sober, I'm 1 year sober, I've done it, I'm sober now. That's not really the way that I think it goes. I think that we have to continue on through this journey. And our sobriety, especially mine, is always evolving and growing. I had a great deal of anger for years about things that happened in addiction and things that I did or things that I said, and I was so hard on myself, or maybe things other people did or said. There was so much ugliness around it, and it took me a long time to start navigating, well, where do I fit into this? How do I learn every single day and keep growing and making myself a better, stronger person? And it's a daily journey. It's something that I do it with intention, and I make sure that I'm trying to do my best every day for everybody. I mean, this is not something that's ever going to end. Addiction is a lifelong disease that we will battle. And, just because we've been sober for 12 years and we might never pick up again, it doesn't mean that we're totally sober. We need to work on that every single day. We need to work on how are we treating other people? How do we feel within? What is it that's going on with me today or yesterday? Why am I being an a hole to somebody? I don't know. And all of that comes within the sobriety community because you have to really look at yourself and decide, how am I going to do this? Who am I? How did I lose myself in this? And how am I going to get myself back? It's personal accountability every single day, and it never stops.
I get it. So, I have come across many women describe spending years trying to hold everything together on the outside while they are struggling internally. So, looking back, what was happening beneath the surface before addiction entered your life?
I was in a marriage that wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work whether I was drinking or whether I wasn't. And I was refusing to come to terms with the fact that the marriage that I was in, and I was very much in love with my husband. We had three small children. I was having a hard time coming to grips with the fact that something wasn't working in it. And I didn't think that I was going to be able to survive without my husband and children. There was just nothing that I was being honest with within that. I was so insecure and I kept trying to hide my drinking and change my drinking and change from wine to whiskey or something of this nature, just sort of shift around all of the drinking, and I wasn't able to do it, and my own insecurities were what were really holding me back and taking me underwater. It was inside me that I had the problem with, and I hadn't really realized it. I was probably 22 years old and still deeply insecure. And I don't know why. I just hadn't quite found my voice yet. And the biggest problem that I had in that is I kept feeling worthless. I kept feeling not worthy. I kept feeling like I was never going to beat this. And whether I was struggling with alcoholism or just kind of halfway drinking, I was never going to be able to be sober. And I just couldn't get myself to the point where I knew that I was worth it, that I was going to be able to do this, where I was strong enough to do it, and really kick my own self in the butt and say, hi, it's time. We're going to do this together now. It's time to do this. But everything was coming, I think, from a deep insecurity from within. It didn't have anything to do with anybody else. It had to do with me and what I really needed to do in order to change my life and be the woman and the mother and the partner that I really wanted to be.
Absolutely. So we can rightly put that you were trying to escape or numb something.
Yes, definitely. I was trying to numb. And the more numb I would become, of course, the more I would drink. And that's how I ended up uh, at the bottom of where my life was exactly that.
So you ended up drinking almost every day.
Oh, it was every day, every single day. I would start in the beginning, I would start probably about, 4 or 5 o'clock, what I thought a normal person would do, and just be able to have maybe a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine. Then it started to sneak into 3 glasses of wine. Wine started to be like water to me. So then wine didn't work anymore at all. So then it turned to whiskey. And I realized that I could drink a lot less whiskey a lot faster than I could drink wine or beer, and it would get me drunk faster. And you know what would happen when that would happen? All of the feelings would get easier to handle. And the weirdest thing, Bob, now I don't think I've spoken about this on a podcast before. The weirdest thing would happen. I started telling myself, I was having a hard time feeling my feelings by the end of my addiction or even by the middle of my addiction. I couldn't feel any feelings except for sadness. I wasn't able to cry. For some reason, crying wasn't happening. Laughter wasn't happening. I just felt um, flat, just completely flat. I was feeling the feelings inside, but I wasn't able to feel them enough that anything external was happening. And I think that was part of the problem because I couldn't feel them really. I was numbing myself so consistently every single day that these things weren't happening. I wasn't in sync with the universe. I wasn't in sync with myself. Nothing was working. And so the drunker I got, the flatter I got. And so I started to realize that when I was actively drinking, I was able to cry. And so then I started realizing, well, gosh, maybe this isn't so bad because I'm able to feel my feelings when I'm drinking and I'm able to let out all of this insecurity and all of these fears. I had this deep fear that my husband at the time just didn't want me anymore, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't enough. And whether that was true or it wasn't, that was what I thought. And so me telling myself that every single day made everything worse. It just made life a whole lot harder. And so the numbing would start and the drinking, the really heavy drinking, and there was just sort of nothing there. I didn't know what to do next. I was in a really, really bad spot.
I completely agree because I think when we talk about any sort of addiction, there are a lot of triggers which are like subjective. It can differ from a person to person. And I see here that it was the relationship where you started thinking that you did not matter anymore,
Hmm.
if I can correctly put it. And you were
Exactly.
just trying to, yeah, you were just trying to numb. You were just trying not to feel anything. In fact, you did have a lot of emotions inside. It's just that you didn't want to feel it anymore, right? And
It would have
that's
killed
when
me.
alcohol, yeah, that's how alcohol came into the picture.
Hmm.
And you started with okay being an occasional drinker, and then you did not realize when it became an addiction.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I was in such denial. Oh my gosh, even after I had been sober for a couple of years, I was still in denial about how serious things really were, you know? I still did it took me so much time to realize so many of the things that my family members were saying to me and I was like, gosh, they're catastrophists and they're trying to make this worse than it is. And I would say those things. Shoot, I think I said them out loud in front of other people, you know? My feel they're so they're so dramatic. It's just easier for them if I'm this alcoholic and this crazy person, and it's just easier for them because then they can just luck me up and throw away the key, off with her head. And that's not what it was. It's not what it was. And my poor family members, I've gone back many times to reflect on some of the things that I thought were fact, even in sobriety. And gosh, it just takes so much um, self awareness and learning to figure out what you're saying is bullshit or if you actually think it.
Yes. Talking about reflection, I think what comes to my mind is the post, the picture that you had posted on social media, Instagram, where you were down on your knees
Oh, that was tough.
and you were reflecting, and it really caught my attention. That is when I started appreciating the transformation and what you have become today. So could you tell us more about that particular picture?
Oh gosh, yes, the hands and knees picture. That one's gotten a lot of attention online. I think I just posted that a few days ago. I remember that day vividly. We were on our way back from a road trip. It was me and three of my friends, and I was so hungover. We had been drinking for 3 days straight, and we were in the car, and I knew that I was going to get sick, and I ran over and I collapsed on my hands and knees. I was vomiting profusely. There were friends that were in the car watching me, and I uh, I knew even then that this was really bad, that I felt pitiful and I felt pathetic, and that it was really, really bad what was happening. That picture was, I couldn't figure out why it was so bad. Something felt really dirty about it, something really wrong. Um, and after the picture came out, my friends, this was back in the day. And so we had like paper photographs. And so somehow that picture ended up in a collage and I found it. I was at a friend's house and I said, "Oh my God, who took this picture? Why would anybody do this?" And they thought it was funny, but it wasn't funny. To me, it was the life and death picture. It was, this is who I am. And when I was in that picture and I can think about the feelings for that day. I did feel worthless. I felt like garbage. I could have just laid out in the road and have someone run me over. That's what I felt like I was worth. I was worth nothing more, not one bit more than the earth that was under my knees. I was nothing, nobody. And when I looked back, sorry, I haven't talked about this picture before. You're the first podcast I've been on since I published it. Um, I hated myself. And I thought that everybody else hated me too. Who could love somebody like that? Who who could love somebody like that? And that's what I thought of myself. My heavens, why did I feel that way? Shame on me. You know, that's not okay. And so all the people that are out there that have those pictures that maybe didn't get photographed, but they know they're the ones on their hands and knees in the brush line or on the floor in a public restroom because they're too sick to lift their head and make it into the toilet. Also me. Mm-mm, not worthless at all. This is the beginning of the most beautiful transformation of your life if you will let it be. And it is totally up to you. And that picture is a wonderful reminder. And I'm so glad I published it. And I'm so glad you're asking about it because that woman was broken and so hurt and sick. And she didn't believe any of those things. I knew that I was bad and worthless and not worthy of anything, including love. Who would love a woman like that? Look at you. You're a disaster. This is what I thought. And if I'm feeling that way about myself, how on earth am I going to expect to get sober? Gosh, we have to really do the work to be able to know, yeah, I'm struggling with this right now. This is hardcore, baby. This is the fight of your life and you're in it and you have a choice to make. You can either fight with everything you have and save your life or you're going to go down and you're going to die. And that's how desperate
Beautiful.
it got for me. I
And it's a beautiful reflection. When I find it as an inspiration. There's so many people suffering, but how? But very few determined to battle it, transform themselves, and give back. Give it back to those who are struggling. Be an inspiration, be a motivation for them. You're making people understand what can be a greater good than that. So I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you publishing
Wow.
it. I think you
Thank
should
you.
have published that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a tough one.
And when you look back now with, if I am using the correct word, compassion, what
Yes.
do you think that younger version of yourself needed the most?
Oh gosh. She needed a lot of love. She needed, there are several, what I've found, different kind of ways in addiction. And some people do better with the coddling. I'm right here with you. I'm holding your hand. Let's get through this together. And some people are not as good at that and do the opposite. And they say, it's your turn. Get your ass up. We're going to do this together now. And I'm going to check in with you in 24 hours. Let me know when you've gone to a meeting. And you have to know, who are you dealing with? Where are they? Where are they in their journey? And it totally depends. I mean, I'm not going to be at where I am right now in the same time of my journey as I was 6 months ago. And so I think we're constantly reassessing where we are within our sobriety journey also. I mean, it's going to change. It's going to be a constant evolution through our entire lives, for those of us that are on this journey to get sober, to stay sober, and to spread the good word that this thing, it's not beatable. I want people to hear me when I say that alcoholism is not beatable. You will never beat it. You have this, it's going to stay like that. But what we do with it, that's the thing. I'm an alcoholic, but I'm 12 years sober. I'm a sober alcoholic. And so that's fine. But this is a lifelong journey that we're going to have to go through. And gosh, why not try to enjoy the evolution along the way and spread a little hope while you're there? It sucks. It's hard.
Absolutely. It is definitely, it's definitely hard.
Hmm.
You have mentioned that you were living in places you had no business being. You have also talked about spending time with people you normally wouldn't have associated with, feeling like you didn't even look like yourself
Hmm.
anymore. So, were there earlier signs that things were becoming unmanageable, that you were either missed or weren't ready to acknowledge?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think one of the earliest signs actually was physical. Well, two of the earliest signs were physical, rather. My face had gotten puffy and red, and my eyes kind of devoid of expression. You could tell that physical change. There was just nothing really there, and everything looked like it almost looked like I was sick. And then I started to develop pancreatitis, and I'm not sure if anybody listening would know what that is, but I was drinking so heavily that I started experiencing pancreatic symptoms, and I ended up in the hospital several times before I ever admitted that I had a real drinking problem. I thought I was just drinking heavily to um, combat the end of a hard day with three small children and a husband who's out of town. So I was still thinking this was probably, okay, a little bit. But the pancreatitis was a huge tip off that I had a way bigger problem, and I was on my way to an even bigger problem. I ended up in the hospital several times, sometimes for several days. And for one of my visits, there was an ER doctor in there, and my husband, my current husband Matt, we've been married for 13 years. He's wonderful. He and I had just gotten married, and I was in the ER having a bout of pancreatitis, and my husband was a resident physician there, and he walked into the emergency room and saw his wife sitting on the table, and he was standing there with his attending, and the attending looked at me and said, "Are you an alcoholic?" And I said, "Yes, I am, and I think I might die." And he said, "Yeah, yeah, maybe this is a pretty serious situation." And I didn't know where to go or what to do. It was terrifying.
And was this the moment of realization where you understood if that things had to change? Was this the rock
Hmm.
bottom that you had hit?
Actually, no, I wish it were. I went along for another probably 6 months of doing this, of being sober for a little bit of time and then not being sober. And no, this was not I had several rock bottoms. I mean, I think sometimes people mistake that there's only one rock bottom in recovery, and I had a bunch. But the worst one for me was I ended up in a place where I didn't have any business being, with people that I didn't have any business being around. But these people would allow me to drink as much as I wanted and they would give it to me. And so it was a very dangerous place for me to be. I knew that I just wanted to drink and my family didn't want me to drink. And so I was just going to go drink with these strangers because they would give me the alcohol. They didn't care if I was sober or not. I was just another person to hang out with. And I ended up in a home that I didn't know with people that I didn't know. And I was given a a big jar of moonshine. It's a kind of alcohol, and I drank it. It had a date rape drug in the alcohol. And, I remember some pieces of a very traumatic experience that happened to me that night. Um, some in vivid detail, some I hope I've lost forever. But I experienced a really difficult sexual assault. Um, and you know, like I said, I remember a lot of it. I don't remember other parts. The memories are fading in time, but I blamed myself completely for it because drinking was more important to me than my own safety. And I had three small children at the time. When I started suffering from the disease, my children were 2, 5, and almost 7. and I had 3 little kids at home, and I had put myself in a situation where this could happen to their mother. I mean, it was, um, probably definitely one of the most traumatic experiences of my life, but it catapulted me into recovery. I called my dad when I could move again. My body couldn't move. I could think and I could see and hear, but I couldn't really move. It was like I was frozen almost. And a few hours went by, maybe longer. I don't know. I was really drunk. And then I started to be able to move again. I called my dad and I told him I didn't tell him what had happened, but I said something really bad had happened and that I needed help and I was ready to go to rehab for real and get help for real. And he said, "Okay, I'm here for you. Of course I am." And he met me at the first public detox I had ever gone to. And that was the massive rock bottom, was when I was able to put myself in a situation where I had no defenses. There was nothing that this man could have done anything to me, could have killed me. And I never, there was no point during the attack that did I think he was going to kill me. It wasn't like that. But I knew that he wanted something from me and he was going to get it. And that it was because of what I had done that I was allowing myself to be in that position. And, now we have 5 children, but I have 1 girl and 4 boys. And I remember laying there sort of in the post drunken attack haze thinking, this could have been my daughter. Like, I'm so glad this was me and not my daughter. And what am I going to do about this so that my daughter never ends up in the situation that I just put myself in? And there was one answer, and it was get sober or fucking die trying.
I get it. So when did your recovery journey actually start? Was the beginning of it, or
It wasn't my real recovery journey, that when I really decided it was time to get sober and I had to do something about it. It was because my ex-husband said, "I'm taking the kids from you. I don't care what you do, but we're done with you. It's done. And I'm sure everybody loves you, but there's no other way for you here." And so that's how it kind of happened. I lost my children. My ex-husband took them from me and, had to start a new life with my children and with himself. They couldn't have me in it. I was chaos. I was hurting the children. Not I wasn't damaging the children, like screaming at them or nothing like that, but my inability to be a functioning human being. How could I parent them? And so it was when my ex-husband said, "That's it. We're taking them. I'm taking them and I'm gone." And that's when I was like, "Oh my gosh, well, there's no way he could do that." My dad was an attorney, and I thought there's no way he could do that. Then he was successful in doing it. He didn't even need a court order to do it. He had my family's support. So I knew that the court order wouldn't be far behind if I didn't just relent. And I had to. And you know what, Bobna, the honest truth is that I knew, and boy, I wonder if he'll ever listen to this one, but I knew that my ex-husband was doing the right thing deep down. And that's what actually started me on the road to real recovery, was the fact that he was able to take my children. They were my everything. They were everything to me. All I was a mother. All I wanted to be was a mother. All I wanted to be was with those children. I made them. I mean, they're my a whole heart. What am I going to do without them? That's what catapulted me into recovery. The attack happened after that. I mean, because I kept relapsing. I went to 5 different rehabs. I relapse. I mean, it's crazy when these terrible things happen to you. Everybody thinks, well, this awful thing just happened to her. Surely that's the end. Oh, don't count your chicken, sister. I had so much more in store for y'all. Y'all didn't even know. I mean, and this is how we work, because it's a disease. It's alcoholism. It's cunning, baffling, powerful, as they teach us in the rooms of AA. And it is. There's no other way to put it. Uh, you, Alcoholism will tell you the wall is white when you're looking at it and you know it's red. It's mind blowing what this does to your mind and your sense of reality and your sense of who you are. I was sure that I had everything together enough to be able to just make it through. And that's all I was going to try to do, was be just sober enough to scoot by, because I didn't ever think that sobriety would be possible for me. Certainly not long-term sobriety. I needed the alcohol. I was too hurt inside. I had to have something to put me away. And I didn't like the Xanax. I tried that. It just put me to sleep. So that wasn't going to work. Painkillers had never been my thing. I had to have this. It was the only thing that was going to take away the pain. And then when the kids left and went with my ex husband, then what? I mean, what was I going to do? And as try with all my might, I thought I was. I couldn't kick it. And so it was several different rock bottoms. I mean, it took many, many tries. And finally enough happened. But the thing that got me into sobriety was when he was successful, and good for him for saying enough is enough. We're done. And took and did my kids want to go? Gosh, no. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. I was everything. I was in the carpool every day. I was in the classrooms every day. I was volunteering every day. I was PTA. I was all of this, you know? And so I was the one who was supposed to be able to keep doing this, but I needed to have a little sneaky sneak behind the scene because I couldn't keep doing that unless I was a little bit drunk because things were so hard for me on the inside. And then when I figured out, yeah, he's taking them and he's leaving. And if I don't get it together right now, I'm never going to get them back. And there's no world in which I will live without my children. End of story. And that's what did it.
I get it. And talking about relapses, because I think they are an integral part of sobriety journey,
Yep.
and it does happen. And but we are not speaking enough about it. So you have spoken about remaining ashamed of your drinking years, even after I think 8 years of sobriety.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so do you think shame delayed your healing, or did talking openly about it become a part of your recovery?
Oh, Bob, no, what a wonderful question. Shame delayed my healing by years. It delayed my true healing by years. I don't know that it delayed my actual sobriety because once I got there, that's when I started feeling the immense amount of shame because I was sober then. There was nothing else to take it away. And yeah, the shame delayed my true recovery for years because I was so worried about all of the things that I had done. I think it was, oh gosh, who was it? It wasn't Emerson who said, finish each day and be done with it. Some absurdities have crept in, let them go. And it's true. And I felt like I deserved to be punished for so many of the errors that I made when I was drinking actively. And I put this self-imposed sentence on myself. And that's what I did. Nobody else was putting this sentence on me. Nobody was dogging me. Nobody was telling me I was bad. People were applauding me and saying, look at you, you did it. Good for you. And all I was hearing was, oh my gosh, remember when I said that? Or like waking up in the middle of the night. Oh, do you remember 14 years ago when you were at that party and you said this to that person because you were drunk? I mean, yeah, that kept me in a really tough place for a long time. And I can say with absolute certainty, working within the recovery community, helping women within the recovery community, talking to the children of the mothers that are still suffering through it, that is what has ended that shame. I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm not ashamed one bit. Not one bit. And I didn't think that I would ever be able to say that. It's the work within the recovery community, specifically and very notably over these past 2 years. I'm saying just as recent as 2 years that has ended my feeling of shame. And that is something that I've wanted to impress upon the women is golly day, why are we ashamed? This is something that we are, I believe, genetically predisposed for. I think that this is a genetic disease. I think that our brains are wired maybe a little bit differently. We're not all going to entertain the disease and become an alcoholic. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
Absolutely.
is some of us are wired in a different way where if we allow this to sneak in, this is going to happen. This could happen,
Okay.
because there is a genetic component to it. And I think that's something that we need to have a little bit more compassion and understanding about. And these moms and these dads who are suffering through this and giving themselves such a hard time, they do have to stop for a second, give themselves a break, realize this is something that you were born with. And yes, it did take hold of you, but it's not something that you need to be ashamed of for the rest of your life. Now, I'll tell you, the shame might come in if you're trying, and this is just not working. And I think that's where a lot of mine came from too, because I was a repeat rehab failure. And so I was so ashamed because, well, what the hell's wrong with me? Everybody else is getting sober. I can't seem to make this thing work. And that just wasn't true. I just didn't see everybody else. And so that's part of why I do what I do. I want to tell people I went to this first rehab and I messed around there. I went to the second rehab and I thought I was doing the work and I did. I was doing all the steps and I was doing all of the paperwork and I was doing everything they told me to do, but my heart wasn't in it because I didn't really think that I could do it. Again, that's what got me really stuck in this weird cycle of shame and regret and torment and sadness and misery and depression and external everything, like trying to make my external world my world because my world wasn't working. So yeah, the shame kept me stuck for a really long time, and that's something that I hope that, the women and the men in recovery right now are hoping are shedding that. I don't think that we need to have the shame with it. I mean, maybe a little bit of shame, as my Southern parents would have said, is good. Healthy amount of shame, just a little bit, just to know that you've done wrong. But after that, continuing to punish yourself over and over and for years, good heavens, come on. This was 8 years later. I was still punishing myself for things I said or did or mistakes I made. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. As long as we're doing the work and trying to be better every single day, some days we're not going to be better. Some days we're going to fail, but we need to get up the next day and try again because one of these days, if we're trying and we're giving it our all and we're doing absolutely everything we can, we're doing the real soul work that comes with it. And I'm not talking about the things they tell you, do this step, go to this many meetings or go to this recovery group. I'm talking about figuring out why in the world you were doing this to yourself in the first place. And once that starts, the shame starts to fade away because how can we not be ashamed of ourselves when we don't know who we are? You're going to be ashamed of yourself. You don't know who you are. If you're not grounded and not centered, probably shame and fear and doubt and guilt, all of that's going to come with it. But as soon as we start to really think about how far we've come and look at where we've come from and what we've done, and okay, gosh, I made it 6 days sober this time. That's pretty great. I mean, I remember making it to my first week. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I had done it. Then I made it to 30 days. I had never made it to 30 days before. Holy cow, I did it. Then I made it to 90. And guess what? I picked up at day 92 and had one of the worst relapses of my life. And that relapse taught me you're never going to do it. Look at you. You were smooth sailing. Everybody did everything but throw you a dang parade, and you still relapsed. And so then I would get stuck again, that same cycle of shame, guilt, rumination, horror, all of it. And then you just have to keep doing it. You wake up the next day and say, all right, I really messed that up. I let everybody down. It's going to take 6 months of work this time instead of 3 for them to believe me again. And let me tell you, it did. It took all the work. It took years, a couple of years, I think, for my family to really know, oh my gosh, I think she's done it. I think she's done it. But shame kept me in a really, really tough place for a really long time. It's just no place to be.
I get it. So, why don't we talk much about these relapses? Why do we always see, okay, addiction, rehab, sobriety, that's all? Why are we not so loud about the relapses? And it can happen multiple times.
Because people don't understand it. The general population doesn't understand it. How the general population sees alcoholism and recovery is they're alcoholics, they hit rock bottom, they go to rehab, and then they're recovered. That is not how it is. That's how it is maybe in Hollywood. Like, think about it. If you watch war movies, if you talk to someone who's an actual veteran, they say, well, it does happen like that, but that's super romanticized. Like, all of the themes are there, but everything there is really, really heavily edited for Hollywood. Same thing with that. I mean, how people aren't talking about it because they don't want everybody to know. I mean, there's no other way that I can think about it. I mean, think about it like this. A lot of the rehabs are really expensive, insanely expensive. It's something we need to work on in our country and in the United States. And I know you're in Canada, so I'm not quite as familiar as how it is up there. But recovery, if you're going to go to an inpatient place that takes insurance, it's tens of thousands of dollars. It's $1,000 a day. Some places are $3,000 a day. And so when you go there, you complete the program and then you come out and you mess up. What have you just done? You've told the world, oh, I just spent $20,000 on my recovery. And then I came out 3 weeks later and I messed it up. I'm a joke. I don't care about anybody but myself. I don't care about the money my husband spent or my parents spent or the fact that that could have gone to something else. I'm a joke. And so it makes you feel even worse about yourself. So you don't want to come out and say, actually, yeah, I did Farley and I did Charlottesville recovery and then I did this, because then people start looking at you like, oh, wow, poor you. You were able to go to all these rehabs and all you kept doing was joking around. And that may be, yeah, poor me. Look at me and say, oh gosh, you had all these opportunities and you squandered all of them. Well, I'm not the only one. And that's why I'm here, is because recovery isn't linear. It's just not. It's not even circular, okay? It's like a jagged line and you don't know where it's going to go. It's like an etch a sketch. Shake it up because you don't know where it's going to go or where you're going to land. You just have to keep working on it. I mean, why would anybody want to get on and say, this happened, this happened, this happened, and especially the recovery centers, because what they want to say is, look at the success rate we have. They don't want to go out and say, actually, 7 of our 14 from last year have already relapsed. And so nobody does talk about that. And Bob, the fact that you asked me that makes me think that I need to get online and really start talking about that more, because that's a piece that I've shared, but I haven't really elaborated on. But I do. I think there's a huge amount of shame in that. And like I said, people don't realize that it isn't alcoholism, rehab, recovery. I mean, there can be 5, 6, 20 of those, dotted throughout and in different places. And terrible
Absolutely.
things can happen every time and wonderful things can happen every time. But I'll tell you one thing, I learned something every single time. And with every single time that I left a rehab, the next one that I would go to, I did take some of the tools with me every single time. And people thought I wasn't learning anything. That's not true. I was learning something every step of the way. And more importantly than just learning something, I was meeting other people along the way who were like me, who were having the same problems that I was having, who weren't being successful. And likewise, I was meeting people that had been successful. And so every time that I was there and I was messing up and already planning my next relapse when I was there, essentially, I would see some of the people that had made it and I'd be like, huh, well, I mean, she did it and she was drinking as much as I was. And, you know, okay. And so slowly but surely, each little piece of each little rehab, it was almost like I was a sponge and it was kind of soaking into me. I wasn't consuming it, but it was soaking in. And then by the time I got to my final one, which was in Williamsburg, Virginia, I was ready. And I had been through enough doors to see what had happened. And in inside the rooms, and if you don't stay inside the rooms and if you don't try again, I mean, I think after rehab, 4 or 5 of our friends in the program were dead within a year, um, because this thing kills.
So, would it be right to say that this worked for you? That
Did.
worked this time?
Oh, it did work for me. With every failure was a little bit of success and it was an opportunity to learn and now an opportunity to share. I mean, think about it like this. If I hadn't messed up my life so magnificently and thought so little of myself and been so down in the dumps, then I wouldn't be able to share, hey, I felt like that too, because people sometimes look at my page if I'm doing, a brand ad or something like that, and you look like I do right now with makeup. And I had my hair done today. The reason we chose today is because I knew I had a hair appointment this morning, right? So I was going to look good, but it's not like this. It's just not. And so, we need everybody to see that you don't start here. I wish we could put a split screen up on here for some of the pictures that I have on my Instagram account. And that's why I have them there, because if you look at me today, I don't look like an alcoholic. I don't look like someone who's been suffering through an addiction that was so terrible that my family almost cut complete ties with me. And I ended up, wait for this, living in a camper with a camper. Okay. There was no power. There was no water. There was nothing. For like 2 weeks, I stayed in there because I didn't want to go to any of my friends' houses. I didn't want to go to any of my relatives because I wanted to drink. I wanted to just drink and be miserable. And I couldn't have anybody seeing what I had become. Gosh, I had graduated from college. I had a master's degree, this wonderful husband, a successful, a marathon runner. And look what I had become. I couldn't let anybody see that. And so I was willing to live basically as an unhoused person. And now I could tell you also, I've learned so much about it, like about that, the whole communities, like all the communities that I never had any involvement with. I have so much more involvement with now because I get it. I was there too. Like eh, I was the person who was at this happened. I'll tell you something true that happened that I've never told anybody. No one, not even my husband knows this. He was on call one night and he had been called into the hospital We lived about, I don't know, a mile from a gas station, and we were living in Illinois at the time. And I didn't have my car because my husband and my dad together said it's dangerous for her to have keys. She's going to go buy alcohol. This was before Uber Eats. You couldn't order anything to your house back when I was getting sober. So it was the middle of the night. It was probably 11:30 at night. And I walked to this gas station on a major highway to get liquor, but I knew that I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money because my husband made sure that he controlled all the finances because I would lie and steal our own money. I would take our money and buy alcohol. I could find $1 bottle somewhere. I tell you, I was a genius at it. And so one night I went to this gas station and I just started asking people, "Will you buy me the cheapest fifth of vodka, please?" And this man came up to me and he said, "Are you an alcoholic?" And I said, "Yes." And I don't know what to do. And he was like, "I'll get you what you need." And he was like, "You're going to be okay one day. It's not today, but I'll get you what you need today." And, it was just so awful. And like, how? And I remember vividly on the way back, I didn't want to ride with, and this person also offered me a ride back to my house, but I had the wherewithal to say, "Oh, no, 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 thanks. I have a friend coming," which was a lie, but it was safer than getting in someone else's car. And so I remember walking back down the highway and a slow truck started to crawl next to me. And I had a thought for a second. It's really, really cold out here. It was freezing. This was right before I got sober for good. This was in like November. I got sober for good in January. And it was so, so cold. And I thought, gosh, I'm only like 4/10 of a mile from the house now. I could probably just get in this truck. I think this person's trying to give me a ride. And something in the back of my mind said, "Run. You got to run." And he wasn't following me. It wasn't like that. It wasn't run like he's trying to get you. I just knew that I needed to not be in that car. And I was afraid that I was going to get in that car. And so I remember I was wearing Ugg boots, leggings, and a sweatshirt and like a beanie because it was freezing cold. And I was in Illinois and I was dressed completely inappropriately for the weather. And like I said, I was a long distance runner for years. And so I just ran all the way home with my vodka and drank it. And I got home and I was so grateful that I had that vodka. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make it through tonight because I have this vodka. I learned something every single step along the way. And I don't think there's anything that I went through starting at the beginning of when I started to abuse alcohol to the last day that I drank that I am truly sorry I went through, even the sexual assault, um, because that showed me something that I needed to see. If that hadn't happened, maybe I would have gotten in that other car and maybe that time I would have been killed. I mean, I learned something every single time, even though I was a slow learn. Oh, my poor parents, my poor husband, my poor siblings. I mean, I was very stubborn and very strong willed and really thought that it wasn't possible. But every single day now, I just wake up grateful to be able to spread the word of recovery. And in the Bible, we learn that it's the good word. In my Bible, it talks a lot about the good word, and recovery is also the good word because it's a miracle. It is a miracle, and
It is.
unless it is, and unless you've had a family member in this or have lived it yourself, and I didn't know anything about addiction before I myself started suffering from it. I didn't have any background in it. I had a really nice, normal childhood. Nothing to complain about. Lovely opportunities. All the greatest things, and I didn't know anything about it. And I also didn't think it could happen to me because I had a great family with a mom and a dad and two sisters and a house and went to wonderful schools and food to eat and all these kind of things. And so I also thought that it couldn't happen to me. But boy, didn't I learn so much. And with every single experience, even the really terrible ones, I've been able to take those and share them with my community. And sharing with my community and doing what I do online and speaking out and going to the conferences and all of these kinds of things. I have a selfish motivation behind it too, because it helps me every single day. Every single day that I talk about the miracle of sobriety, the true miracle of sobriety, I buy into it more because it's a fact. I challenge anyone to tell me that this isn't a miracle. I was going to die. I know people that did die. People in my small group in a really well established recovery center died, because of this disease. I mean, it happens every day. And And I think a lot of us turn a blind eye to it because it's not being put out there online and it's not being shared with the community. And so now I get so much from sharing just internally. It's made me the person that I am today. It's made me confident and aware and strong and 100% certain that why I definitely won't say the right thing all the time, but I believe in everything I say. And I couldn't have said that before. And I can defend everything I say because I believe it, and that was something that I couldn't have said before.
Absolutely. And I get everything, every bit of it. And when you talk about it, your advocacy often focuses on challenging stereotypes around women, mother with addiction. And you have been frequently discussing the belief that addiction doesn't look like certain people, especially PTA moms, stay at home mothers, and women who appear successful. What do you wish the society actually understood about addiction that it still gets wrong today?
Oh, that it happens to everybody. If you guys think so, listen, that's exactly it's one of the things that I'm online for is to challenge this ridiculous stigma that the carpool moms, the PTA moms, the Girl Scout moms, just because you look like this, and I didn't look like this when I was in active addiction, but I know people that look like this and who are on their way to active addiction. It's not okay in our society to be a mother and struggling with alcoholism. It's not. If you're a mother and struggling with alcoholism, you're already a bad mother. You're labeled right away. If you're a dad like that, it's expected. Dads suffer from alcoholism. We started learning this in the 30s. Then it's also when we started learning that mothers weren't allowed to struggle from alcoholism. This was a man's disease. Why do we think that the prescribers were prescribing things like ludes to the housewives? Because everybody was going freaking crazy because we needed supports that we weren't getting. And that's still true today. I mean, all the different medications that we're pimping out to try to make these moms feel better. But I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit. I could go off on the big pharma all day long. Y'all don't even want to hear anything that I have to say about that. But
Go
I,
ahead. We would love to listen.
oh my gosh, it's just, we keep treating problems like this with drugs and it's soul work. Drugs help. Oh my gosh, especially in early recovery. But like as far as not having seizures and things like that, it's important to detox appropriately because, like I said, it is deadly.
Absolutely. What do you wish the society actually understood about addiction, which it is still getting, it still gets wrong today?
I wish they knew that it's happening behind the closed doors of people that they know. I wish they knew that it's not shameful or ugly or bad, that it's something that people are suffering with. I wish they knew that it doesn't make you an inherently irresponsible person or make you dangerous. I wish they knew that it can truly happen to anybody. I wish they knew that maybe it's not this person's fault. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I can't speak on that because I don't, it's case by case, but certainly alcoholism is not your fault. How you choose to treat it, that's up to you. But this is happening in neighborhoods all over the country. The secrets in the suburbs are insane. There are more women who don't look like they have a problem with addiction, suffering from different kinds of addictions than anyone has any idea. I've seen it. They're in my DMs. Hey, this is what's going on with me. I would never know. And you can look at these women's pages and they're the president of the freaking junior league. It's a fact. So this is happening in every single neighborhood, in every single society, all over the country. I can't speak to all over the world because this is where I am, but I would assume all over the world also because women are afraid to speak out about it. I mean, if you were the PTA president and you went over to brunch one day and said, "You guys, I can't stop drinking. I'm drinking in the morning. I've actually had a little something this morning already so that I'm not hungover sitting here with you would judge her. These women don't want to come out. They don't want to say, I know I look like I have it all together, but I don't, because there's automatic and immediate judgment. And that is garbage. Who gave anybody else the right to judge anybody based on something that they're suffering from? What we need to do is lift each other up. And these moms, and I'll call them out. I do it all the time. We all know this. These moms that are sitting around the wagon wheel or around their rosé talking about the other moms who, oh my God, I think she might have a problem. Well, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you going to her and saying, hey, sis, let's chat. Let's see what's going on. How come we're not going straight to that mom? Why are we talking about her behind her back? What's that about? Mean girl energy? Come on. We don't need to spread any more of that. Listen, the world gives us a hard enough time as it is, especially as women. So we need to be there for each other and stop this nonsense of not being able to come out and say, I think I have a problem. I have women in my DMs every single day saying, please don't say anything, Kat. Nobody knows about this. This is what's going on. And I'm like, girlfriend, I'm with you. First of all, I've never, nor would I ever share anybody's private information. I hold my sobriety and um my confidentiality as dear to my heart as my children. I would never. But these moms don't feel free to talk about it because there is so much judgment. And that's what I'm here to change. Because really, if we want to talk about it, talk straight to me. What have you got to say? I'm right here. And people do. And I love to go up on the debate. And there's not a whole lot that I like to debate because, like I said, I like to keep my space very positive and uplifting. That's what I'm here to be, is a guiding light, I hope. But I will challenge anybody that wants to continue to propagate this bad mom narrative if you're struggling with this disease because it's killing the moms. It really is. How would you feel if you heard your buddies talking smack about somebody because they were an alcoholic and you were secretly struggling too because you had 6 shots of vodka before you came to sip on the rosé at lunch with the girls and nobody knows about that, but inside you know, but you're sitting around the table and everybody else is talking about somebody else. You're not going to talk about it. You're not going to get help and you're sure as heck not going to go to rehab because then everybody's going to know you went. We're hurting ourselves. I,
And circling back to the rehab programs, uh, you know, how did you decide upon which rehab or which programs you wanted to attend? Did you do a research? Did you study? Did you get any help from people around you, your loved ones? How did you decide upon that?
So we made a list of all of the best rehabs in the country. And by the time I was ready to go, really ready to go and ready to save my life, my parents knew that that was the truth. And so we made a list together and we narrowed down the list based on the programs and based on what I thought would fit me best. Because the first 3 or 4 rehabs I went to, they were just because they were local. They were nearby and it was somewhere that could take me because sometimes the rehabs can't take you right away and you have to wait. But these other places could take me and it was just kind of an easy end. And they were great programs, but it was me who wasn't ready. And so with this last program, I had to make sure that it was the right fit. And for me, that meant it was a professionals program. And so you had to basically apply to get in, and then you had to have an interview, and then they would decide which program you were going into. And I knew the one that I really wanted because I knew that I was looking around and seeing men and women that looked just like me that were in those rooms. And that was something different because a lot of the rehabs I was going to, there weren't any moms there. They were kids. They were, 20-year-olds or like 22-year-olds and nobody had children. I was the only what I felt grown up in a lot of the places. And these people were still in college. I mean, or post college or not even, and I wasn't finding my people there. And so we found the rehab where I thought that my people would be. And praise God, it was the right one. And they were all there. They were all there. In fact, I'm still incredibly close friends with 2 of the people that I've met there, both of whom have gone on to become really incredible in their careers. One of whom I can't say the name publicly, but has become one of the world's most formidable experts on motherhood and addiction. What he's
Awesome.
done is remarkable. So I think that the most important thing that we were looking for was where was the right fit for me. And it was also really important to me that I was near enough to my children that they could visit. And I needed to be in a program where there would be visiting opportunities. And so where we chose, I was allowed to see my children every Sunday. They could either come see me or I could travel to see them. There were all kinds of rules and you had to earn points in order to do these things. But that's the thing is that they were earnable. And if I did the work, I could do it. And in these other places, it wasn't really like that. And almost sometimes it felt like I was being punished and like I was a child. And I knew that I wasn't. And I also was punishing myself already. So I didn't need any more of that. And so this program, it was almost like a university for alcoholics. It was like my alcoholic graduate school. And I mean, it worked wonders. I was treated with respect, with dignity. The rules were extremely strict. If you messed up rules, there were very serious consequences. I tried not to mess up any rules. I didn't really. There were a few infractions here and there. I, I, sometimes I'd say, "Oh, class is starting in 10 minutes, but I haven't had any coffee today. And if I can't run over and get this coffee really, really fast, and there were certain rules. You were expected to be on time, and exactly where you needed to be when you were supposed to be there. And that's not because they wanted to start class promptly. It's because they were teaching you that you had to do just whatever the heck they said in order to do it. You had to learn to be a rule follower. You had to learn that you didn't know best. And so those were some of the tools that they were teaching that I hadn't learned in other programs. So researching the program was a really, really important step. I think that if you're able to find camaraderie with those that are around you going through the same thing or something similar as you, it's easier to gain the strength from that community for everybody to move forward.
Absolutely. And so, what has been the hardest part of early recovery for you? And did sobriety feel like relief, fear, both in the beginning?
Okay, so the hardest part of early recovery was learning to feel feelings and taking responsibility for everything that had happened because all of the things that had gone on, and I was divorced then. So there were legal ramifications and there were huge amounts of things that I had to figuratively clean up, based on everything that had happened in addiction. And so I had a long road ahead of me and I knew it. And I knew that it was going to be very, very painful. Um, and I didn't look forward to that. It was tough. When you hate yourself so much and you believed for the period of 18 to 22 months that you would be better off dead and that your children would be better off if you were dead, it's hard to start reconciling those feelings sober and figuring out why you thought that. I mean, reality is the hardest part of early recovery. I can't, reality. And what was the second part to that question?
So, was it, do you think it was when it came to sobriety? Did sobriety feel like relief or fear or both in the beginning?
Oh gosh. For me, it felt like I was playing a role. It felt like I was just acting. It felt like I still wasn't me yet. I was pretty sure that I was going to be able to stay sober. I mean, after I made it past my 4 or 5 month mark, I was pretty sure, maybe 6 months, I was pretty sure that I was going to be able to stay sober, but I felt like an imposter because this couldn't be me that was sober. I didn't know how to be sober. So I can't I don't think it was really a relief as much as it was, um, a constant state of hypervigilance because I was so afraid that I would relapse again because I had so many times. Why wouldn't I relapse again? It was definitely a little bit of trepidation, um, and constant awareness of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. And did your motherhood shape this journey as well?
It's the reason for the journey. Yeah. I
Okay.
I never would have started No Wine in the Carpool Line if I didn't have my children. I never would have written the book if
Hmm.
if it weren't for my children. When I finally got through the hardest part of this addiction and found real recovery and sobriety, I needed my children to know that no matter what they go through in their lives, however hard it is, no matter what it is, whether it's an addiction, God forbid, or something else, something horrible happens and you have to rebuild in a way that it's totally possible. That rebuilding your life after a catastrophe is totally possible. And that's up to us, right? It's up to us to decide that we have the strength from within and to try again and to try again and to try again. Because what else are you going to do? We're not going to just stop trying and then die. That's just not going to work. If you've already tried so many times and you keep failing, you have another try in you. And my children were the reason. They're the reason for all of it. I wanted them to be proud of me at first. The first thing I wanted them to be able to say is, my mom doesn't drink, and have that be a flex. I wanted them to be proud of who I was. I wanted them to be proud to hold my hand to walk into some place. And I think they always were because they never really realized the extent of my addiction. I was really good at hiding it around them. And their father was also really good at protecting them from it, from seeing the worst of my addiction. Um, but now, of course, they're so much older now. I mean, my daughter is almost 21. My son will be 19 on Wednesday. And then my next boy is 16, my next boy 11, and the new one 3. I want to show them every day that once you do get through something like this, it's your responsibility, and not necessarily to share everything, but it is your responsibility to share what you've learned to help others. You don't have to tell them all your dirty details like I do. I'm the one that gets on the internet and says pretty much anything because what I don't have anything to hide. Not everyone is as open as I am, and that's totally cool. But I do think that when you go through something hard in your life that other people are also going through, maybe they can learn from something that you've done. And if it's within your power to speak about it or write about it or even just talk to the lady who's sitting next to you at McDonald's weeping because you don't know why, but it turns out it's something. It's up to you to help, to start helping. And so I I wanted my children to be proud of me. I wanted to raise helpers. I wanted to raise empathetic, kind, compassionate people who weren't some of the people that were going to go out in the world and judge those with addiction because they know what it looks like and they know what it doesn't look like. I mean, nobody would have looked at me in the beginning and ever thought that I had a problem, and nobody would look at me now and think that. And my children are now able to go out into the world and say, when they hear the stigmatism, when they hear the misinformation about women and mothers in recovery or alcoholism or the neighbor that's suffering, they're then able to speak up and be like, wait a second, that's not true. I know that because I've lived it. And let me tell you what is true. And let me tell you what's helped. And they're able to be stewards of this wonderful gift of sobriety. They can talk to their friends. Do you know how many children have come to my children over the years because mom or dad is struggling with something, and those kids know that I did, and those kids know that my kids lived it. And so then they can go to my children and say, hey, how did you do this? And my children have often said, we were so young, we don't really remember a whole lot of it, but I can hook you up with my mom and maybe she could talk to you about it. And so then I get the youngsters of the people that are suffering, and gosh, it's wonderful to be able to speak to them too because some of them don't have any help. And so I think my children catapulted all of this, and I thought it was just as important for them to have a learned, educational, clear voice about this, what this disease is and what it isn't, as it is for me.
And I think this is very important that parents or those who haven't seen it quite closely should also be aware they would be able to help someone in need, right? We live in a society, in an ecosystem where we have people who are suffering and who are not. So I think it's important to be aware, to educate, and to help as a community. You did a very wonderful job. Your kids are quite aware and they are playing a part, a role in this space. I'm
Thank
really
you.
proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much, Bhavna. Those are very special words. Thank you.
And, getting back to your work, advocacy, and venture, like you are giving back so much. You're doing so much, you're holding so many people so strong. So,
Thank you.
what inspired you to turn your personal experience into advocacy work?
It was exactly what we've been talking about from the beginning, the stigma of mothers suffering from alcoholism. It was funny because before Instagram was ever even a thing, my dad was on the phone with me. It was my first night in the rehab that ended up being my final rehab. And he said, I was a journalism minor in college. And he said, one day you need to write about this, Catherine, because nobody is writing about this from the mother's perspective. There's never, and back then there hadn't been, there were no books on mothers and alcoholism and how this is going. There were none. Not that we could find anyway, because we looked. And he said, you got to write about this. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is such a dad move, like thinking his daughter's talented enough to figure out how to pull that off. Like, how would I do anything like that? And I guess the universe and daddy were in sync together because then this thing called Instagram came along and then I started writing on it, and I don't know. I don't know how kind of it all happened. It was sort of a whirlwind, but I'm so glad it did. And I hope to never stop because um, I think the more we can talk about it, the less alone other people will feel.
And there are so many who are in need of it. So, I think you should keep on talking.
I would love to. I would love to. I would shout it from the rooftops if I could. And I also I want to impress upon the community that having compassion for the person who's in your life who's struggling with this is really, really important. And I know that it can be really hard to have compassion for somebody who's struggling through this, especially because in active addiction, we're liars. We don't tell you the truth. We'll tell you we haven't been drinking when, of course, we have. We'll tell you we didn't go out that day when we did. And we'll think that you believe us, you know? And so it's really hard to have compassion for someone who lies to your face over and over and over again. But again, we have to remember that this is a disease and there's something in there that's just not quite firing the way that everybody would like for it to at the time. So the most compassion we could have would be great. And if not compassion, just a little bit of understanding. And there's a time to get tough for sure. I mean, there's a time when we have to really get tough in the recovery community and take serious steps with some folks. But I think for the majority of people, particularly who follow along my account and who I speak to, that's not so much the case. So I think the compassion is something that I can, if you can just give a little, it's great. I mean, certainly if they've burned the bridges and it's just way too late, you need to honor your feelings and your space. But the best that we can do is try to love each other through all parts of it, good, bad, ugly. And it's really, really
Course.
hard. Nobody said getting sober was easy. I don't know why people think it is sometimes. I don't know why we come into these rooms of AA or the rehab rooms or any of it thinking that we're going to go there to learn how to be sober. That's not what it is. You don't go there to learn how to be sober. You go there to learn about who you are and what's going to happen for you while you're on this journey. It's not a class as much as it is whole life education. You've got to relearn how to use your life. You've got to relearn how to do everything. Shoot, I couldn't go to the grocery store by myself for almost a year. Almost a year. My husband was ready to give me the keys 6 months in, and I knew I'd come so far and I'd worked so hard and I so desperately wanted to stay sober that I was like, I'm not ready. It took me almost a year to go to the grocery store because that was one of my go-to playgrounds. I would get the boxed wine that was like this big, and you could buy it and then put it in your purse and then go into the bathroom and drink it. I mean, it's lickety split. It's the easiest thing ever. So there were just so many ways that I was able to deceive and hide that it makes it hard for some people to stick around, and that I get. But if we can do our best with understanding that, I promise it's not us. It's who we are within our addiction, and if you give us the chance, really give us the chance, even if you have to separate yourself for a while, even if you have to step away. One of my best friends in the world, I mean, we're like sisters. She had to step away for like a year because she just couldn't watch it anymore. She just couldn't watch me self destruct anymore. And that wasn't her leaving me. That was her taking space until such time I was ready to have someone back in my life that I could start being friends with and share my life with again. But it's tough all the way around. So I just want to impress upon everybody that if you can, keep that love alive, baby, even if it means a break.
Absolutely. And I think that has helped to and strengthen your relationship, right after the recovery with her
Oh,
as well.
hugely.
So
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were like sisters before and we're like sisters now. I was hurt for sure. And I didn't understand why she wasn't around, for a little bit. And I know now why and how painful that must have been for her. My gosh, I was looking at it like I can't believe she's not here right now for this and for me and for all that's happening. No, that's not what it was. How horrible that must have felt for her to not be able to share in that whole year of my life when some of the things I was going through, she definitely would have wanted to be there for and help me through or even celebrate some of the small wins with me. But she wasn't able to because I'd made it impossible for her. I had made it impossible. So looking at it from their perspective too is something that I hope that all of us that are within the addiction still, and maybe even just post addiction, can appreciate the amount of pain that we've given to these loved ones of ours, our friends and our family. Because how terrible to watch your friend or your sister or your wife, essentially be in a car with her foot on the gas heading for a cliff and she's going to hit it. She doesn't believe she will because she's delusional. She's in denial, but she's going to hit it. You just can't watch.
absolutely. And so circling back to your work, what are you like doing at the moment? Like I see you writing books, I see you inspiring a lot of people. So I just wanted to know about the work platforms or the projects that you are currently building.
Oh, thank you so much. Hopefully, we'll get everything on my website soon, catradians.com. So we'll be able to, keep everybody in the loop. But actually, Bhavna, it's so funny that you just said that too, because I've just started to pivot a little bit. My main platform has been Instagram for several years, and for 4 years, I guess, five. I don't know how long I've been on there. 20, what did I do this? 6 years, 4 years, 4 years. Um, they all run together. But I'm starting to write more in a journalistic style now, and I think we'll see some articles of mine and some stories of mine start popping up in different publications around the country and world. But I do have the book coming out in August. That's since I finished it, it's funny because I finished it. And so I don't have anything to work on for that, but it's not out yet. And the book tour hasn't started yet. So I do have this kind of lax time here. And I thought, what do I want to do? And so I just started writing articles. They are not out yet. Writing articles and then saying, I think I could probably sell this to this paper. I think I could sell this to this magazine. And it's been way fun because that's how I started getting published in the first place. I wrote a bunch of
Awesome.
articles in my usual Catherine crazy tone and sold them in Europe. And I mean, maybe you could appreciate, I mean, that the European circuit really took to my voice very quickly. It took us, the Americans, a little bit longer to get on board, but in London, I did pretty well right off the bat. And so I'm doing more of that
Awesome.
now again, too, is actual journalistic writing and publishing. And I don't know if I have another book in me. This one was really tough. It's a memoir, and so it's a true story. And while there are certain details that have been changed to protect people in my life, it's what happened. And so I definitely don't have another story of that caliber in me. It was very difficult to write, but I really hope to continue writing everywhere I can in the recovery community, speaking everywhere I can. But to be honest, writing is the thing that and I do love speaking. I love public speaking too. I can't decide between the two, but the writing is pretty fun for me because I get really lost in the words and the work when I'm doing it. And it's fun and it's real. And I think it's probably what I'm here for is to keep writing about this. So to answer your question, I'm writing and I hope to continue doing that as long as, the world wants to hear what I have to say.
So that brings us to the close, but I would definitely want to ask one question. What message would you want to pass on to people, or what you would want people who are battling addiction to hear today?
You're not alone. You're far from alone. If you feel alone, find someone. Find my account. Find another sober account. There are hundreds, probably thousands now. Reach out to somebody. Tell them the truth. You don't even have to say your name. Just say something. Say anything. Because I promise, once that dialogue starts, then it keeps going in your head. After you've made that one small breach, even if you're wasted when you do it, so what? I was wasted when I did a whole lot of things that got me where I am now. Just make that phone call. Even if it's not a phone call, the DM or the anonymous text, like whatever, just tell somebody you're not alone. There are so many people sitting in your same community that have the same feelings that you do right now. And so speaking up is really important. And I also want people to hear recovery is possible. I know that there are people sitting out there saying, yeah, well, it was possible for her. It's not possible for me. I said the same thing. I said the same thing. Recovery is possible for everyone. And I know in AA, they say there's a really small percentage of people that actually can't get sober. I don't believe that. I don't believe that to be true. And I'm sure I'll take some heat for that. But I think that everybody can. I think we have to find that magic niche for the individual person. Recovery has to be highly individualized sometimes. And so I do think it's possible for everyone. Let's just find what fits for you. Let's just keep working on it, because one failure doesn't mean lifetime failure. Let's just get up tomorrow and try again. And if you get up tomorrow and you drink again, okay, let's get up the next day and we're going to try again then. And if you want to talk about it, DM me, email me. All of my information is on catradians.com. It's all on my handle on Instagram at catradians. I respond to everybody. And only occasionally do things go so crazy that I can't, that there are so many that I think I've responded and I haven't. And if that ever happens, hit me up again. But you're not alone. And I want to talk to you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Kat, for being on Aligned Voices and even touching upon aspects that you have never spoken about.
I can't believe I
And
did that. I
yeah,
know.
yeah, you did, you did. And I'm really happy to have you here. And I think this is just the beginning of our relationship. We are going to have more conversations and
I would love
inspire
it.
more people who are struggling out there.
I thank you so much. What a wonderful time I've had on the show.
To stay connected, visit our website and follow Healthy Aligned Living on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more conversations, insights, and updates. If you would like to reach out, you can contact us by phone at 1-866-213-0518 or email us at info@healthyalignedliving.com. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit from it as well.